Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. I am your host, Scott Carson, excited to be here. And it is Monday, October 15th here in the offices. And you know what that means. It's the third Monday. That means it's Marketing Monday. That's right? And we've got our guest, Elijah Whites, on this morning from Serving Social to talk about some of those good things that come along with marketing. But most importantly, congratulations, Elijah. You and Christy celebrated your 15-year wedding anniversary this last weekend.
Not quite 15 years.
Not quite 15 years?
Yeah, sometimes it feels like 30, but it was 6 years married. But yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Congrats, man. That's awesome. But
Thanks.
One of the things that we talked about a little beforehand when you were here in this office a month ago, and then Christy and I over the weekend testing back and forth and stuff like that, we've been getting a lot of questions from people like, man, how do you come up with so much content? You know, how do you identify what you should be talking about to your audience, to your tribes, to your marketing, to your email, stuff like that. So I thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about some of the ways to, curate content on there. I know you've got some pointers and some things, there's some items you discussed and put together on paper to talk about. So why don't we go from there first, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think when you're looking at content or what type of content that you need to create, of course, you got to know who you're trying to sell to. That's like that one thing everyone always tells you, right? Like figure out who your audience is or who your customer is. Because once you figure that out, then it's all about really kind of looking at, maybe their interests and what, they're into and, the channels that they're using. And then, you can really start figuring out what topics you want to talk on based on their interest and, maybe how that correlates with your business. From there, of course, I think it's really important for you to figure out, what you're capable of as well. You don't want to, I would say like you want to get stuff out there, but you also don't want to like start something and just quit, like do something that you can be consistent with because you can always grow. But you got to start somewhere, right? You got to plant the seed, and then you go into maybe like, something that's better than what you're doing now. So like, for instance, if you want to do video, but you're not capable of video, because video is a really popular, content type, I would say right now. Live video, promotional video, anything really video, because we're very visual people, right? So, that's really popular. But if you don't have the means to do that, then you might want to think like, okay, well, can I just take a really good photo? Or can I, maybe you're good at Photoshop, or you've realized that you should be using Canva and you're creating, some really fun and cool graphics in Canva. You gotta start there, but at the same time, know your audience, and that's how you're going to know what you want to actually start creating for them.
I think you said something really valuable there about planning. It's a long run. It's not a short sprint. This is a 100-mile marathon. So you have to pace yourself, because let's all face it. We've seen people that come just gangbusters right out of the gate on something. They're all excited. They're talking about everything. And a week later, they're doing something else. Or another week later, you can't find them anywhere. They just disappeared like smoke rings in the dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they put too much fuel in the beginning and they burnt themselves out, right? And there wasn't anything left.
Yeah.
That's why we always tell folks, you got to build that narrative, right? You tell a story. You tell a story about, maybe you're just getting into a business or you're just starting something, you just tell that story, mixed with your marketing and what you've been up to. And it's something that you can create content on a regular basis with, right? But yeah, I mean, you have to be consistent. If you just, come out of the gate, you hit everybody. I mean, and people might think you're really cool, but if you can't stick around, then you clearly weren't trustworthy, or you didn't know what you were doing and you couldn't maintain it, A lot of times when you see, some of these companies that do these big marketing pushes, but then you never see anything about them again. I mean, clearly it didn't really do that well of a job. That's the brand isn't there anymore, and they're not being able to, to hit those channels anymore. So, yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, I was talking to a couple guys this past weekend. Actually, I call it a tale of two investors, because I talked to one Friday night, and he was like, I'm just lazy. I don't want to do anything. Instead of me going on my computer and marketing, I want to go take a nap.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. You can continue to do that, but not get anywhere. Then I talked to another individual on Saturday who's closing a couple deals just like the other guy. but he was like, man, I really want to do some things, but I'm not sure. I feel like I'm overanalyzing, that I have to do all these things. And
Yeah.
you made a really good comment about, hey, finding out what you're probably you're most comfortable at initially, whether it's doing a live video or a live selfie or doing an infographic in Canva or some other thing.
Right.
But just doing it consistently, whether it's once a day, once a week, definitely more than once a week, it'd be better, but a lot more than once a month. Let's just base it at that, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I would say a good goal, a good goal would be one to post at least 3 times a week. Okay. If you're going to start out, I think 3 times a week is ideal. I think based on 3 times a week, initially starting out, that's something that's manageable. Okay. Yeah. You can figure that out. And then when you're posting on those, being able to just find a good photo, again, it's very visual. So don't overanalyze it. If there's been plenty of times, and Christy, because I'm a creative, right? So, I look at this, I'm like, oh, I could bring in these elements, I could do this, and then I could fade this out in the back. And Christy's like, it's just a simple graphic. Like, stop,
Reel in the reins a little bit.
Yeah.
Reel in the reins, right?
Yeah, exactly. She's like, stop overanalyzing. Like, this is too much text. This is too much this. Like, you're it's almost like the graphic is, even though there's no sound, it's now too noisy, right? Mm-hmm. When I could have just had like, that one just really good photo and maybe just said like one word across it, right? You see, Nike does it all the time, just do it, right? It's a bunch of like inspiring, footage. Maybe they're not the best example to use right now. But needless to say, they got great messaging with that, right? So don't overanalyze it. Don't look at all these things that you should be doing with social media. Like, oh, I don't know if I can create a good enough piece of. Just get a good looking photo, post that photo, and then in that copy down below where you type out your thoughts, like, tell a story, give some context behind that photo and why it pertains to your business, or, maybe it was something inspiring that you saw, like, just getting something out there, you'll start to really be able to gauge what people are liking and what they're not. Mm-hmm. But yeah, don't overanalyze it. If you don't have a cool graphic, then don't post it. Get a photo, go out there and take some photos with your phone. And that's something too. If you realize, what, I'm not capable of creating maybe a graphic on a regular basis. Maybe it's a video, but I can take photos on my phone. Every time you're out and about, just remember, hey, I want to take a photo. I want to make sure I take at least 1 or 2 photos today of something that, maybe is a part of my content categories, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. Because knowing your content categories will definitely allow you to understand what photos you should be taking or what you should be looking for.
Exactly. But one of the things you and I talked about a minute ago here before we got started was how it's the easiest time right now, between now and the end of the year, the first of the year. Now's the easiest time to post something that people are going to actually look at. If you think about it, it's the least, you get to be the least creative right now because you have so many things going on, right? We've got Halloween coming up. You've got Thanksgiving coming up. Right. You've got Christmas and all the Christmas parties, and you've got New Year's, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got all those things. And let's face it, I'm sure many people are used to getting those Christmas cards with like the 1-page story about your relative's family. I make the, it's the 411, the annual 411, like, oh, hi, hope you all are having a great year. Bob's still unemployed for 5 years looking for that management.
Yeah.
Little Susie's still cross-eyed from the mule kicking her in the face. Little Johnny has a very bad case of a rash we can't identify. And I'm still depressed and drunk half the time as I write this. It's people are, but it's a story. They share their story about the year, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is people like, what do I say? Just start. I had the gentleman I talked to on Saturday. He's like, well, I've got these 2 deals. Then we ran into a family situation with my parents, and I got sidetracked. I was like, whoa, chill out. Don't be hard on yourself. You got 2 assets you're working to, and a third one. Those are 3. Tell the stories about those 3 deals. You don't have to do it all at once. Pick one property. Do you have a good photo of it? Great. Let's do an email out to your database talking about that deal and where you're at. And next week could be deal 2. And the third week could be your 3rd deal. And then you talk about what else is going on. Just share your journey, because I think that's what really social media is all about, is sharing, like you said, the story, and especially as an entrepreneur, the fact that you, as entrepreneurs out there, as you taking steps or taking action separates you above from where everybody else is who's scared to take action, right, Elijah?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with you on that, man. I mean, and I think that's where people lose focus too, is they think like, oh, because it's not happening right now, maybe it's something I can't talk about, which, I think social media is about, it's about connecting, right? Especially with Facebook and everything, that's their whole thing, is connecting a community and sharing that story. And being able to just kind of take these things as they develop, like what you're saying. I got three houses. In fact, you could probably divide all three of those up into even really long story, and each one of those assets could take care of the next 3 months worth of your content if you just plan it out correctly. You know exactly what you want to do. I would say, a newsletter I've seen as being one of these pieces that people have really started to, it's kind of like what they started out with, right? They started out with a newsletter because it was more of like this long form piece of content, like what you're talking about, where we're giving you an update on what's happening now, what's in the future. And then, hey, here's a recap of what we talked about last week. And I wanted to update you on that as well, and you're basically just keeping people, on, and you're even talking about the struggles. You're talking about how, maybe that deal that you almost lost, but last minute you were able to save it, and how great that was. So Halloween is coming up, right? Well, let's talk about spooky deals. Now we got an entire 30 days on spooky deals, and that's the whole thing. And you even you play off like what a lot of these bigger mainstream medias are doing with TV shows and 31 Days of Fright or whatever it is, right? So you build like this, basically something to just continue to bring people in. Again, you're telling the story. I thought it was really funny yesterday, Scott. I was doing a video with a guy, and he's remodeling the inside of his shop. And so I'm in there, I'm like, hey, so, what are we doing here? And he's like, oh, we're just remodeling it. I'm like, okay, well, what are we remodeling?
Right.
And he's like, well, oh, okay. Yeah. So we're remodeling like the countertops. Yeah. And he's like, okay, I can get into this. So it's like, we're remodeling the countertops and all these kind of things. But then, he kind of faded off. He did a really good job, but then he faded off. And he told me, he's like, putting on the spot, like, I don't really know what to say. But what I find is really funny is that when people act like somebody else, like you take on a persona, that persona so well, because you just see it on TV all the time, or maybe it's just a common character in most movies, that you can say what you would have naturally should have said, just you being yourself, but you can be this other person and do it, right? So taking that kind of concept into your social media could actually really help, when you build out these personalities of like, hey, I'm going to tell this spooky story. So for the next 30 days, I'm going to be like that spooky guy that, sits there and he's reading like the horror stories, right? And that's how you put all your content through there, because you want to get people talking. You want to get them more interested in than just like maybe the same old stuff that's usually out there, right? And maybe it's not even just your stories. Maybe you just start finding a bunch of things that went wrong on the internet, and you just showcase something that's happened to somebody else, and then you give your 2 cents into, how this could have been avoided or whatever, right? There's like all these different opportunities in there. Thanksgiving, that's a lot of days to talk about thanks for referrals and thanking people for gratitude, and really, showcasing different ways to develop your business relationships and things like that.
Vendors, clients.
Yeah. Just by showcasing like different ways of maybe you can be appreciative, or better ways for people to work, or maybe how you've been generating business through this relationship style of marketing, right?
Mm-hmm. It's all about, like I say, there's layers to every story. It's like peeling back the layer of an onion. Yeah, everybody like, oh, I'm rehabbing. Okay, remodeling. What's that mean? What are you doing exactly right now? Well, the cabinets, or then after that's the kitchen, then after that's the floors, and I'm picking up the paint color. Then we move on step by step of what you're focused on. Or like in our note case, oh, hey, here's how I found the asset. Here's how I raised capital for the asset.
Right.
Here's the workout strategy that we'd like to do. Here's what happened, and then ultimately here's how we sold the asset. So, there's so many parts, but everybody, I think, gets so like scared, like deer in the headlights, when they got to come down to create something. And I'm a big proponent of like, listen, if you hit a deer in the headlight, let's take a second, call somebody, pick up the phone, or see what other people are doing, and put what they're doing into your story. one of the best guys, you talked about the different things that we see on there. And one of the guys that I know out of Atlanta for years has built this huge database by simply identifying 4 or 5 stories that like USA Today or DS News or something relevant in his line of real estate. Those 5 stories they like the most. And then he sends an email to his database with links to those 5 stories. And he gives like a paragraph, his thoughts on each one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just recycling other people's content, but using it in a creative way to put a different spin on it or a different animal of that.
Right. Yeah. And, and that's, and that's also a good way to become a thought leader and kind of like an influencer in your market as well, is because you're not just somebody who's actively doing business in the area, but, through your social media, you can showcase like, your influence. Right. And, so like, you mentioned he'll send that out to all of his people. Now, was that through like a newsletter or was that through social postings? Okay. Yeah. So it's like, that's through like a newsletter.
But it got shared. I mean, it helped him create an audience because everybody would share it to other people. And then he would also share the articles on his social media site as well, individually.
Yeah.
Like, so if he found a story, he would post it for the day. And then on Friday, he'd go back Monday through Friday stories. And that was an email that went out Saturday.
Yeah.
So
yeah, doing like a whole recap of the week type of deal. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I mean, and that stuff is killer. I mean, it's especially news. Again, everyone is so busy. When you're that one person that can, really give them the most pertinent information that's happening in the industry, and then maybe break it down a little, give them a little kind of cliff notes, to it. I mean, that's definitely like a really solid piece of content. And you are right. It's something that he didn't have to go out and write this whole entire big piece. It was just shared content. And that's also, again, shared content is a really good way to expand that reach because you are sharing somebody else's stuff. You're engaging and interacting with others online, right? So when it comes down to, just the different types of video content, but just content in general, I mean, you have video. I mean, you have newsletters. That's what we've been talking about. We have a blog, which, again, your blog and your newsletter could almost be a lot of the same type of content, right? You might set it up a little bit differently. And even with a blog, a blog can really be something that is chopped up and you talk about different points that you've made inside the blog. And each of those are those own social postings and whatnot, right? GIFs, or jiffies, whatever you want to call them. It's tomato, I guess. But those are really solid because, I mean, they're funny. They're really good ways to kind of show something that's entertaining. And then you kind of throw a question in there, some kind of thought. Around all of that, I would say, look at your content categories, right? So we talked about your audience and the type of people that, let's figure out who you're selling to,
where they're at. I think it's a big thing, what platforms they're on too. We didn't mention that earlier.
Yeah. What platforms, are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they, what channels are they on? Because for instance, if you realize that most of the people buying from you are on Instagram, you really need to look at the best way to start generating high quality photos, graphics, and videos, and then really think about the type of layout that you want to have. I know that's real easy, especially for us like on Facebook right now, that we would just post a photo maybe one day and then a graphic the next day, maybe a couple more photos, throughout the week. But when it comes down to something like Instagram, the way that people view your Instagram feed and how it's designed and the filters that you use and that type of thing, that can get pretty, that can get kind of complicated. So if you are getting into Instagram because that's where your audience is, then there are going to be some things like that where you got to think about, okay, I'm going to need to have a way to take some really good photos, and I'm going to need to be able to create some nice graphics. But with that, you can create maybe 2 or 3 different layouts and kind of recycle those through, as long as it's not too overwhelming. Maybe change out some color here and there, but it's great, right? Facebook, Facebook is definitely going to be, another that, it's going to be different from Instagram. For instance, I don't share other people's stuff usually on Instagram, unless I have my own custom photo to go along with their link and stuff, because I want to make sure that I keep consistency, right? Now, I would easily share something on Facebook, just because that's just how the feed looks, and it doesn't look terrible, it doesn't look bad, it doesn't necessarily take away from what I'm posting. But I would say define, once you define your audience, where they're at, what channels they're on, think about maybe a couple categories that you could start talking on consistently. So we talk about content, we talk about building this narrative, we talk about all this kind of stuff, but what does that actually look like? So like for one of our companies, it's a moving company. Now the owner of the moving company, he's young, he's very, wants to be very innovative in technology with inside the company. At the same time, does a lot of health related stuff. He likes yoga, working out, all that kind of stuff, right? Eating healthy, everything. So from there, we think, well, if we're a moving company, and we want to diversify and talk about some other things and really, reach out to maybe other people in the industry and, try to get involvement from the community, we're not going to get there by just talking about moving. So, we're going to talk about, living well and living healthy. Since it's a moving company and they're, the guys are out there sweating and they're lifting really heavy things, we need to think about how we eat healthy and how we keep our bodies hydrated when you're moving. And, if you're moving this weekend, here are some tips for staying stress-free during your move. Or did you move this weekend and now are super sore? Here are some tips on being able to relieve muscle fatigue or inflammation and stuff like that in all natural ways, right? So I just started to identify, a couple different categories of content that we wanted to talk on. So from there it was real easy because, well, we talk about moving, we talk about packing, and then we'll do healthy recipes, stretches and workouts, that type of thing. And this is stuff that we're starting with because we have a whole video campaign we're going to be getting into where we're going to start taking these categories and developing them, right? But we had to start somewhere. So we identified our audience, the type of people we want to get in front of, large homes, parents with young kids, things like that. And then we really started to get into those categories on what those people would be looking for. So we could start gaining, brand awareness, trust with our audience, and then at the same time have some more interesting stuff than just talking about moving all the time, because people hate moving in the first place. So you start talking about moving all the time, it's just kind of like keep on poking the wound.
Well, but there's also great things you can throw in there too. Is like, okay, what do you need to do to prepare for your movers to arrive?
Yeah. Right.
What should you expect? Top 6 things when you should consider when picking a mover.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures of the guys moving stuff in and out. I think that's a last thing a lot of people think about.
Yeah.
Pictures with the homeowners beforehand and afterwards.
Right.
Time frames, that kind of stuff. How big a house, what should you expect? But that's the thing is you just throw it up on the board.
Yeah.
Do basically a brain dump to come up with all these different creative ideas for different things. And there's your content, right? There's what you focus on. It's the same thing with what we do with real estate. Okay, you got a deal. Let's throw everything on the board. There's nothing bad. Okay, just share it, because if you're thinking it, somebody else is probably already thinking it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I hear from people all the time. Somebody asked me the other day, Scott, how do you keep coming up with content? I'm like, I just see what people ask me questions on.
Yeah.
Or can you talk about this? Okay, we'll dive into that. Or, oh, here's a question I got from somebody the other day. Oh, let me talk about that. Or, hey, let's go this route with a new deal we're going. Like we sent out an email last night. We've got a list of assets we're going through tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We called it the Halloween assets because they want to close by Halloween.
Oh, gotcha.
So we pulled a picture of the house. We took a pumpkin and threw a pumpkin on top of it.
Yeah. That's really funny. Hey, but that right there, just like what you said, you just got this list and they want to do it by Halloween because you don't know anything about it and you just got this list. This is those 31 days of spooky deals, because you got to do it really quick. You know what I mean? So there's like all these, so it's, again, that's fun stuff right there. Right. But no, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's,
just throw it on the wall. Everybody thinks about
that's all you can do.
That's all you can do. And then identify what, and then just rank them in order and then just go from there. Sometimes they're videos, sometimes it's email. And we're not talking, you have to write a novel. Sometimes the shorter the email, the better.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that. And that's the thing is, like, a lot of times you might decide, what, I got 8 different topics I want to talk about, or 8 different categories, and I'm going to start creating content on. Fantastic. Throw our 8 of them out there. If you're capable of it, do it. And then just look at the results. See what happens. You might look at all 8 and be like, well, shit, only 3 of these are actually performing. And we want to make sure that we're not wasting our time and, we're putting our resources into something that's actually returning an investment for us, right? So we're going to get rid of all those others, and we're just going to look at these 3 and make these really freaking good. Like, we're just going to really hone in on those, because, and that's something I would say is that, if you start taking on too much and you start talking about too much, that's why sharing content's really good, because maybe you can find stuff that you're aware of, or maybe you have an opinion on, but you don't have the time to write something big. So you write your little blurb like you were talking about earlier, Scott, and you push it out, right? And then you just really focus in on your your really good pieces, but really try to keep those slim in that sense until you get more comfortable and you're like, okay, I've really got a hold on this. Now I really want to like move into this next area. But take in mind, you don't always have to create the same type of content, because these are campaigns. Like we're talking about, here we are coming into all these holidays and it's super easy. Yeah, because I can do a campaign in October. I can do one for November. And of course, if this is just stuff you're doing organically, I mean, it's really solid stuff. I mean, if you're putting ad dollar behind it, I would definitely make sure that you have a really good game plan for how you're going to spend that money over the next 3 months, because this is going to be a competitive time. So I wouldn't just throw yourself into that unless you had a professional on it, right?
Right, and there's tools out there too that a lot of people don't realize. There's so many different freaking tools. Like, I'll give you an example. There was an article about how thousands of people lined up in Miami to get it pre-approved for subprime mortgages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw that somebody just sharing it, which a lot of people, I saw like 4 or 5 people went and shared it. I took it a little step further. I went out to Sniply, which is a great little tool that creates custom links for an article. And then when you put that link to, this was like on DS News or something like that. So I dropped the actual link into Sniply.
Yeah.
And Sniply allows for me, so it creates a custom link that allows for me to advertise. So if somebody clicks on my new Sniply link, when they click to the website, it shows the article, but now my logo pops up.
Yeah.
Where I have a banner that pops up across the top left, the top right, the bottom left. And it looks like I'm advertising on DS News.
Yeah.
And so I did one the other day. I got 990 clicks on my link.
Yeah.
5 people shared my link across the board. And I just shared it once on Facebook and then once on LinkedIn. And I got almost 1,000 clicks on my advertising for the podcast.
Yeah.
And it literally, I pay like $20 a month for Simply. But I didn't have to do anything difficult. I had to copy a link in there. Okay. Boom. Where do I want my banner to show up on the screen?
Right.
And share it out there. So, but that's sharing content. I just did something in 5 minutes. It wasn't difficult at all. Very easy to do. I think I did it Friday afternoon. Last thing, I think Friday afternoon is a great time to post on social media, because a lot of people are just killing time, but they're also, I don't send an email out after 3 o'clock because they're usually out of the office, don't want to read their emails till Monday.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and there's like little things like that can really make the difference. And, that's the biggest thing is that, I'm looking right now at just, companies where we come in and we just make some of the slightest changes and they're seeing, 500 to 1,000% increase in user engagement and search traffic that comes through. And now take in mind, those aren't something that just maintain at those levels, right? Because we made some minor and big changes to where it allowed, them to finally make those connections where, the traffic was coming through. But the ones that we're looking at that are actually like, they're just starting and they're just trying to make those little changes, but they're staying consistent. I mean, you're going to see those initial boosts, engagement, what you're, where you're ranking, all that kind of good stuff. But you have to stick with it. Again, you have to stay consistent with it. And this isn't just because, this isn't about an SEO factor. Okay. Let's rewind on this and make sure that this is, you understand that we're not talking about just putting a bunch of content out there to rank. You're talking about putting content out there to get user engagement. people need to talk with you, and you need to be available on a regular basis to maintain that conversation and foster the conversation to achieve those goals that you want. So the content that you're putting out there, for instance, if we are talking about healthy food recipes, the conversation for us is, we need to eat healthy to stay healthy so we can work hard and make sure that we have a quality service, when we're moving somebody, right? But if on a regular basis, if we're out there having that conversation, people can come back, they can ask us about it. Hey, I had that meal. And then we can ask them, hey, do you have any healthy recipes we could have, send to our guys? And then you're getting people back. Okay, so now we're asking questions, we're doing postings, but it's all about being consistent and trying to foster a conversation online and get people engaging with you, subscribing to you. They're watching your videos, they're reading your stuff, they're downloading your stuff. All of that is what you're trying to do. But if you haven't started anything, just think about, hey, I'm going to start posting 3 photos a week, and I'm going to start talking about, maybe it's just every week I'm going to post 3 assets that I'm looking at, or I'm buying, or maybe these are all past deals. Maybe you've been in the business for a while and you're trying to figure out how to reinvent yourself. Well, look at everything you've already done. Think about how you could tell the story about all those past deals, because if you can talk about maybe even your past and then bring that narrative all the way up to your current day present where you are on now, you've just built this whole narrative for yourself, which then shows the people in your industry the authority that you have in the industry and the influence that you have, and you're able to then continue your campaigns and the different types of content after that, right? Some of that can get really in depth, and I know it's when you really start getting into it, I promise you will have to start looking at these layers and how you want people to perceive you and everything from there. But just deciding 3 photos, or maybe I don't know how to do good photos, but I've been a killer on Photoshop my entire life. Great. Let's pump out three badass graphics off Photoshop every single week. But start somewhere, start consistent, and see what people like and see what they don't like. I mean, if no one's clicking on your stuff, and you're clearly putting yourself out there, and you got 1,000 friends already on Facebook, and you're still not getting any likes, your content's probably not that good. So, that's the things you just look at and you monitor. Never take it hard on yourself that people didn't like your stuff. If you're going to start marketing online, you're going to find a lot of different disappointments in areas where you thought was going to be killer, and you thought everyone's going to love it, and they didn't. That's okay. These are what you learn from. You don't do that again, and you put something else up, and you just continue to see what people say. So, man, that's what's worked for us.
Well, I agree with that. It's the same thing. I totally agree with that. Let's go through and give some folks some ideas between now and, I don't know, January, February, things to do. So we talked about Halloween coming up. So we can talk about the 30 scariest deals, or the 10 scariest deals, or the 3 scariest deals you could do. So after that, then we have Thanksgiving. People talk about the things that they're thankful for. They could talk about their vendors. They could talk about their educators or their mentors. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's family, this is even where you can start recapping, the year, things like that. You see a lot of companies course focused towards family, giving thanks, all that kind of stuff. Again, gratitude, kind of having like some of these buzzwords, those are, good focuses. Again, doing that, like the whole recap towards the end of the year, because you got to think, by the time you hit December, this is like where it's getting too late for things, right? Because it gets really busy, a lot of holiday promotions and things like that. But even in December, you still want to be talking about what's coming up in the new year.
Hang on, you could all do like a 12 days of Christmas thing.
Yeah.
So 12 different things for the year. That's another thing as well. But then New Year goals, resolutions.
Yeah, as I say, New Year's resolutions, anything like that. Now, take in mind also too, you mentioned earlier events and parties. So these are really good opportunities to either take photos or do small videos when you go to these events and these parties, because then you can start really talking about those other groups. Again, anytime that you're with a bunch of people in public, those are great opportunities for some good cross promotion, especially for companies that are having events that want to be promoted. They're begging you to like them and, share their stuff online for the party, right? So those are all really great stuff to be aware of and think, hey, if I'm going to be doing a lot of networking, this holiday season, how can I maximize, the time that I'm spending doing that?
Right. But there's one thing too, if you're out networking and you're asking people, everybody has, New Year's goals and your resolutions. I always like to ask, what are your goals for the next year? I'm not a big fan of resolution. Goals are a big thing. Resolutions we give up on by January 3rd because we're hungover January 1st. January 2nd, we go to the gym, and then we're too sore on January 3rd to do anything.
Yeah, right.
but that's the thing is okay, and then thinking how you can best align or help the people that are important to you, your vendors. Hey, how can I help send them business? Because in turn, they're going to be very thankful for you, turn around and want to send you business as well. So it's a very nice symbiotic relationship of really helping to, you're helping others succeed, and then they're going to help you succeed as well.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. I think there's so much opportunity that people are missing out on, especially when it comes to, the folks that we're already doing business with. Right. Sometimes I even in people that aren't in our industries, they see something as like being competition. I'm not quite sure even what it is, but it's ridiculous because there is a great way for us to share business back and forth because we don't specialize in things. We can share each other's audiences, and we can, just like what we're doing here today, host things where two people can get on here and talk about different topics, right? There's a lot of stuff like that they can do. I think especially I know some of the plans that we have, and I'll share some of this because I do think this is stuff that people should be doing. It's kind of that community aspect, in my opinion, of the internet, right? So for Facebook, you got community groups, people on there just sharing ideas and stuff. So, what about really bringing on people and, doing those little short Facebook lives about, hey, what are your New Year's resolutions this year? And really showcasing, hey, this guy right here, he does great work and he's looking to grow, let's do it this year. We're just really getting together and aligning goals. I think that, if you're talking about your New Year goals for 2019, that you really should have a plan for what you want to accomplish by this exact same time, next year, right? Because at that point in time, here we are getting into October. So there's like, at this point in time, we got campaigns that are going to be kind of fizzling out, and then we're going to get ready for the new year. We're going to have all these New Year campaigns and everything. And then, whole new vision and, hey, new us, new you, and all that kind of stuff going into the new year, right? Fantastic. So, these are going to be those times where you look back at what you did this year and say, okay, did we achieve that goal? We're able to do what we said we were going to do. As far as your content goes from there, the new year has a lot of opportunity. If you look back at this past year and think about all the events and all the holidays and all the funny things and, you talking with your friends like, oh, I should have posted that, that would have been a great time. All those things that you didn't do this past year that you thought of, well, write them down and do them this coming year.
That's a great point. Especially if you're going to like conferences or events, put them on your calendar,
right,
and pre-plan out some of the things to use at the event. So like last year, or was it 2 years ago, I went to traffic and conversion. And there was a speaker on there, and I pre-planned it where I used the whole like my head is exploding thing. So I get some great nuggets. So I held that. I knew I was going to find a nugget. I wanted the right time to use it. So then I shared it.
Yeah.
And they actually used it at the event in front of like 6,000 people.
Yeah. And
then they shared it to their newsletter. And Christy starts calling me, oh my God, they just used it, your image in the newsletter. Like, yeah.
Well, it's positioning yourself, and that's really, I think, what people forget with marketing, that it really is like, hey, let's put some plan into like what's happening, right? So, we use Sprout Social and some other automated marketing services. And, that's one thing I also too, if anybody's not familiar with, there are ways to post online. You can do it all at once and schedule all your postings to go out at a specific time on a specific day. And some of them are free and some of them you pay for, but all of that is out there. And if you're not taking advantage of that and you're dying by your own social posting structure, then that might be something that you'd really want to look at, because, you're going to an event, right? So automatically you do all of the pre-social postings for you at the event. You're not even there yet, but you're already talking about you being at the event, and you can have it to where you're notified before something actually posts. So you're at the event, your phone goes off, you look down, hey, it's time to post. You go through there, you make your couple of little edits because now you're actually at the event, and bam, beautiful photo, great posting, hashtags, links, all that's all done, taken care of for you. But it's because you planned it out, you know. There's a lot of holidays that happen on a regular basis. holidayinsights.com. I'd recommend that if you're on a day and you just don't know what to post, jump on holidayinsights.com and just look at all the weird things that people have national holidays for, and see if there's something happening that day that pertains to you. You know, who knows? Maybe it's, you know, national, you know, buy your friend a hot dog day, right? So you do a little video where it's like, hey, I'm here with my, you know, good buddy so-and-so who's an investor, and today's National Buy a Hot Dog Day, so I'm going to buy him a hot dog and we're going to have a conversation about investing, right? And then now you sit there, it's kind of like comedians drinking coffee, you know, now it's just two investors eating hot dogs. I mean, I don't know, that's sexy, but so
that's a great thing though. holidayinsights.com, National Hot Dog, National Lemonade Day, National Margarita Day.
Yeah,
you know, all those little things that you can throw into your marketing. We got some students that do a really great job with that as well. But using that, the holidays, movies, there's always bigger movie releases, talking about that, and identifying what's coming out. And just look, there's a lot of things out there. We could spend forever talking about stuff. It's about what people will do. And I will tell you this, take action, do some things, just start sharing, you know, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you know, just start sharing it, and then pre-planning it. If you're sitting there Sunday night at home watching the Cowboys win, or watching the Patriots win last night, or unfortunately the Red Sox beating the Astros last night, sit there, take a little time to talk about that. You know, oh, hitting it out of the park, or, you know, whatever you're fan of. It's okay to be personable and add a little bit what you're passionate about into your marketing, and just share it across the board there. Like I tried to time my email last night to go out as a game ended, as it went to everybody's inbox on my Sunday night email that I send out.
That's killer.
You know, just trying to, but there's a lot of tools. The idea here is not, let's go back to the thing, because you and I, we go down some dark holes sometimes with marketing, some rabbit holes for sure, which is great.
We could take it to the moon, man.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing is, we're doing this on a daily basis. We're working with people doing it on a daily basis. It comes naturally to us, but most people don't have that muscle developed to begin with, that marketing muscle. So take a little bit of time, start sharing some things. You'll develop things. You'll walk into things and start seeing message. Oh, I'm going to go home and do that, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to add that to message. It will develop over time. But if you never do it, you're never going to get any further off, and you're going to be sitting here at the end of the year like, what do I need to do to market? You know?
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, you know, I would say and this is the one thing I've been trying to express to everybody is, you know, if you're going to start posting and you do start running into those, sometimes it can be as easy as sharing, again, a photo, and maybe you don't even say anything because you don't even feel like you've really got anything to say. You just share a photo and say, hey, I really like this image. What do you think? Like, hey, that at least gets people like commenting and coming in there. So, you know, if it comes down to that time, you know, there are things you can do. Now, take in mind, don't just post crap. You know, I'm not telling you to just post something because you want to post something, right? Or because you feel like you have to post something. If you don't feel like it's going to bring value to your audience, then don't post it. But if you're trying to build something that's consistent, you're trying to build something that you want to, you know, at least start getting something moving in the right direction, and at least start cultivating your current audience, you know, there are ways through, and I mentioned Canva and also Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark has a lot of stock photos that are part of that. So if you're already using any type of Adobe suites, or I don't even know if you have to pay for the service in itself, I'm not quite sure. But you could, I mean, there's a lot of services out there. You can get beautiful stock images that you could use. I'm not saying that those are the best types, but there are options for you to at least have something that goes out.
Exactly. Now let's talk about something really fast here before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
June 30th, 2019.
Yeah.
Do you know what day that is?
It's I believe that's social media day, Scott.
National Social Media Day. We are literally 7 months out from it.
Yeah.
No, 8 months
No.
out from it.
Yeah.
If you think about it. What
Okay.
should we do this year to, I don't know if we're going to do it. I don't think doing another 27-hour live stream.
Yeah.
I think we could knock it down in half a little bit.
Yeah. See, yeah, I've already been thinking about that because I don't think 27 hours this year is going to be ideal unless we're like literally in different locations. That could be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something there. This past year was really awesome, right? I think it would have been really cool though to actually get to meet a lot of the speakers that we actually had in there.
Yeah.
I know that's definitely more challenging, but yeah, it's a good thought, man. There's a lot of cool things that we've been working on that I'm really excited for, being able to roll them out for National Social Media Day. I just think, once we start looking at all of those, we'll really figure out, okay, like, how are we going to do it? But yeah, I think maybe half the time we did it,
I think a good 12 hours would be fine this time around. We could squeeze 24 to 30 people into something like that.
Right.
But maybe make it like a TED Talk or, rent out a movie theater and have it on the big screen.
Oh, yeah. That could be cool because then we can have like all the servers and everything there too. You know what I mean?
Or especially, we're thinking Alamo Draft House where they bring food in and stuff like that. But might be something to think about this year on the big screen.
That might be something, like social media, like you've never seen it before. I like that.
Bigger, better.
Yeah, bigger is better. There you go. Streaming.
That's the thing, planting the bug now on a couple of things. So, I had the idea last night. I was like, man, maybe I should do a small workshop. And we rented out a movie theater. It's on the big screen. People come in and eat and chill and learn and personally want to, but we're still live streaming across the board. It'd still be cheaper than doing it like at a big hotel conference center, stuff like that, but still be kind of a different take on it. No,
absolutely. In fact, because I'm a Google partner with Google's Get Your Business Online, that whole movement that they do. And so there's a lot of courses and presentations and basically classes that Google actually provides us that we can use. And we've actually been looking at that as like, okay, well, the information's free for us, right? So like, why can't we just be able to start, find a better way to start sharing this with our audience so that, they can get some great information coming directly from Google. Not to say that some of the information still isn't a little bit vague for, some of those that are, just starting out and maybe not as, fluent in how to do all this stuff, but that's why we're here, right? We fill in all the little gaps and, make sure that you truly understand what it actually means. Cause, now, just the word posts, that's like 3 different things now. And, you start using it as just like a general term and, now everyone's getting confused and now they're just confused on what that post actually is. So, but yeah, no, I think it'll be really cool. I mean, if we could do something like that in a movie theater, that'd be awesome. Especially if they serve food, because then we don't got to worry about it. And, maybe we can just do the after party there then.
Just do it exactly right there afterwards. Yeah, who wouldn't?
So,
I don't know. Just some great ideas. I'm thinking ahead.
Right.
No,
let's do it.
It's already circled on the calendar this year, so
right.
Because it lands on a Monday, or is it? Hang on a second here. It lands on a different day this year.
Yeah.
Saturday, June. So Sunday, June 30th.
Sunday. Okay.
Yeah. So Sunday. So
Sunday.
Exactly. Well, hey, Elijah, I know you've got a very busy day ahead of you there. Yep. You and Christy. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Note Closer Show podcast, as always, for Marketing Mondays. We got to hang out this week sometime. Catch up. All right, Chief?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really appreciate it, Scott. Thank you for having me on.
No problem, man. We'll see you later.
All right.
Christy. All right, bye. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closer Show. Hopefully it was valuable. Just kind of helping you. Some of you need an invigoration. Some of you need to resuscitate. A shock to the system to reset your marketing and things rock and rolling. But if I can help you with anything, or I can recommend one thing out there, start planning what you want to do. Start taking a little time during the week. Okay, what do I want to focus on? What do we need to do? what's coming up on the calendar, and start planning things out. It's not going to be the easiest thing. It's like time blocking. All right. Everybody loves to talk about time blocking, but we all fail at it. Look, everybody fails at it, but the more that you plan, or the more you kind of can plan ahead, if you forget and fail half the time, at least you're getting half of it done or getting half of it out there. That's better than none of it out there, like many of you guys. So take the time, go make it happen. And I guarantee if you start marketing on a regular basis and getting rock and roll and putting content out there, creating content, it won't be very long before we start seeing you at the top. Bye, everybody.